For this kitchen design session on the Austin sample project, it will be a continuation from the first kitchen session. In this second session, I'll cover wall elevation dimensions, keynotes, placing and dimensioning islands, and creating a cabinet schedule. Let's get started with the main wall elevation. When I create a wall elevation, I like to use a specific tool underneath the orthographic camera tools called wall elevation. When you use this tool, the view is isolated to a specific room. It also omits the platform information for the ceiling, the floors, and the walls. To dimension in this view, I'm going to use the automatic dimension tool. I'm going to specifically use the tool called Auto Elevation Dimensions. If you're using Chief Architect X13 and prior, there is a separate tool called the NKBA Auto Elevation. Once the dimensions are placed, you can manually modify them. I usually wait to manually modify the dimensions until the design is near complete. If I go and repeat the process, the dimensions may be duplicated, and I try to avoid any extra work. Since the design is nearly complete, I'm going to come over and I'm going to begin with the top dimension string. When you click on the dimension string, you'll see a number of diamonds that locate specific items. For the wall cabinet in the corner, I'm going to click on the diamond and I'm just going to pull it off a little ways and remove that dimension string off of the corner where it's cut. I'll do the exact same thing on the opposite side. Grab the diamond, pull it off just a little ways. Now you may notice on the top dimension string, I don't have a center line that is picking up the cook hood. I specifically built this cook hood out of a cabinet. You can change a dimension string to be a center line. If I were to do that just by using this existing dimension string, I could pull this down into the center and you see how it picks up the center line. You can also toggle a particular dimension string. You see the highlight with the red handles on it. There is a remove and add centerline indicator in your lower edit menu. I'm going to just remove that centerline dimension string since the centerline dimension string at the bottom is picking it up and they're both exactly centered. I think I've got enough information on the top dimension strings. On the right hand side of the dimension string, I'm going to add more information than the program generated. I have modified my dimension defaults so that it's not picking up the countertop or the toe kick or the added molding. If you want to pick up that information, you can go into your selected defaults and underneath of the kitchen and bath dimension defaults on the locate auto elevation, you can see that I don't have the moldings, countertop, or toe kick selected. If those were checked and I run the automatic dimensions, it would pick up those dimensions automatically. For this dimension string, I'm going to add the detail by clicking the added diamond. Wherever you click on the dimension string, you see an added diamond. Let's just zoom in. I'm going to pull that diamond over. You see the diamond attached to the lower part of the countertop. Wherever you click, you get the added diamond, and I'll go ahead and add that onto the toe kick. If I toggle on my crosshairs, if you want to move those dimension strings out and align them, then the crosshairs help in positioning those. Let's just slide up, take a look at the moldings, and I'll leave that one as is. So on the right side of the wall elevation, I have details for the dimension string on the right, and then off to the left, I have the summary dimension lines. This may be a preference. This is the style that I happen to use for my dimensions. Let's move down to the bottom dimension string. On the first line of dimensions, I'm going to remove it off of the corner cabinet cuts. Just grab that dimension diamond, pull it off. For the center line dimension, I'm going to click on the center line, go ahead and pull that up into the fixture. Again, that's just a style preference. Go ahead and zoom back out, and then what I like to do is make sure that the numbers match 252, 252, and then off to the side the 119 and 5/8 equals, just to make sure that all of the dimensions are equal on both sides so I don't embarrass myself if something else got picked up. Let's move back over into the floor plan view. The camera that I've created has defaulted to E5. I want to change that and name my camera specifically K1, K2, K3, etc. for the kitchen. Now when you've done your elevation information and you go to close it, if you haven't saved the camera, which means any added annotations, the annotations I have in this case are dimensions, this is saved along with the camera and you want to explicitly make sure that you save it. Once it's saved, the view will close. Then you can double click to open up the camera. You can also click on the camera, use the Open button, and modify the attributes about this camera. I'm going to come up onto the camera panel itself. I like to name these because I use the project browser to sort these, and I'm just going to call it the main wall elevation. By putting K1 at the beginning of it, it will sort it in the project browser. And then on the plan display, I'm going to use the same number, K1, and then you see the call out used in the plan view. Now when it comes time to send a elevation view out to the layout, there is text below the line, and currently you can see that the automatic option in my case is not checked. If the automatic option is checked and you send this out to a layout sheet, it will populate the text below the line with the layout sheet number. If you uncheck this, you can type in information about it. The callout size being automatic will grow based on how much text you have in there, so it could get very large depending on what you want to do. If you want to force the size of the callout, you can uncheck the automatic and change the size and force the size to be at a specific number. In the elevation view, you can add annotations and markups as well as keynotes. Let's begin with a couple of markups. First thing I'm going to do is add a few glass indicators. In the library, I'm going to search for the term glass indicator. These are 3 simple lines. I'm going to go ahead and grab the glass indicator, and I'm going to come over here and just place a handful. It's easier if you have your crosshairs on for alignment. A few glass indicators so that we can show exactly where the glass is in this view, and it's not confusing. Which objects may be glass, which objects may be solid isn't always easy. The next thing, as I close the library, sometimes depending on where you cut the camera, you see the cabinet box is exposed. One of the things that I like to use is the CAD crossbox option. Come in here and create a crossbox over the top. And then let me do the same thing on the bottom, create a crossbox on the bottom of the cabinet. If you are going to be sending your views out in color, you can then change the material fill on the crossbox. Let's just double click to open up the bottom crossbox. On the fill style panel, I'm going to come down to the color, use the eyedropper, pick up the brown style cabinet. Once I have that fill, then the crossbox is the exact same color. I could do that on the upper cabinets. I am going to change all of those cabinets to white eventually, so I'm going to leave that as white. I'm going to grab both of these cross boxes, hold my shift key down, use the copy tool, and then reflect about, pick up the center of the cook range, and paste those on the other side. That way I can clean up the view depending on your preference to add those cross boxes over the exposed cabinets. For your notes and callouts, you can easily use the text tool. Come in here and put in a text object that says something like stacked crown molding. That can get a bit detailed depending on how many notes you have in the design. The other option is to use keynotes and place your keynotes in a schedule. Underneath the text tool, you'll find the note tool. I'm going to come over, click a note on top of the cook hood, and then for the note, we'll just type in something unique like custom cook hood. Notice that the note type is being assigned to kitchen. There are several different note types. You can build a new note type. The label is set to be a macro, so every time I add a new note, this will automatically increment it. A few other options, text below the line. You can also change the style of the note, and then you'll see in the note there's a caution sign that is going to tell you as you move your cursor over the top of this to create a schedule from the notes or ignore it. I'm going to ignore with no schedule because I want to place my schedule in a CAD detail. I don't want to place it off to the side over here because I want to separate the note schedule out, send it as a different scale. I'll probably send this out to my layout at 1/2 inch scale. My notes may be at a different scale and I don't want to have to worry about covering those up. So I'm going to ignore with no schedule. Then I place all of my schedules in a CAD detail. So I'm going to come over to the project browser. I'm going to come over to the CAD details and I'm just going to right click and say new CAD detail. Then I'm going to type that it's notes for the kitchen. This is now going to open up a brand new blank area. Let me turn off my crosshairs that I can place a note schedule in. And I'm going to come up underneath the Tools menu, down to Schedules, and I'm going to choose the option for Note Schedule. Once I place the note schedule, let me double click and open up the schedule. The first thing I'm going to do is rename this to the Kitchen Notes. You see the available columns to include. Currently it's the 2D symbol, which is the callout, and the text. And then the categories to include, as I scroll down, there should be a category for notes. I'm going to expand that, and the main note that I want to display here is for the kitchen, so all other categories will be turned off. One of my preferences is to also turn off the column headings. Once I've got those changes in place, I can come in here. If I want to resize that to get that callout a little bit smaller, you can see how I can easily resize that. The color of my note in the number 1 is controlled in this case through the elevation note. In the elevation view, if I click on the note, see how it's on text notes. If I want to change that color to match the mainly blue color I'm using for my annotations, I'll change that. You can see that it updates it in the notes, and then as I place additional notes, those will auto number. So I place another note in the backsplash, so we'll just call this the mosaic backsplash. The text above line is using the auto number, and now that I have the schedule in place, you see the number 2 on that backsplash automatically populates, and as you place additional notes, those notes will automatically number. So we just call this the commercial range. All of those notes will automatically number. If you want to change the ordering of the number of these in your schedule itself, you can click on the order, and there's a little move handle right in this case where I've clicked on the row 2. You can pull that down and reorder it. In your wall elevation, it will swap those numbers around. That's how you can control the ordering of those numbers. If I fast forward a little bit, here's a completed view of the wall elevation that I've created that is ready to be sent out to the layout sheet. For the Austin kitchen, I'm going to place 2 different islands. I'm going to begin by placing them as slightly unfinished, and we'll do a few modifications, dimension them in a floor plan view and in an elevation view. As I switch back over into the program, I've created 2 variations of these islands over in the library. The first one I'm going to place is a variation of the first island that is slightly unfinished. When placing islands out of the library, if you want to dimension the details of it, it's best to unblock the island. While the island is still selected, I'm going to come down in my lower edit menu and I'm going to use the Explode Architectural Block option. In the selection, you can see that this has been split into all the unique components. Let's move into a 3D view. I'm going to use the Perspective Floor Overview camera, and then let's come around and take a peek at the particular island. The first thing I'm going to do on the island is to create a custom countertop, and then I want to have it waterfall on either side. So we rotate around just a little bit and look at the side of the cabinet. I want to create a waterfall that will come in here. You can waterfall with the automatic tool when the countertop is a custom countertop. To create a custom countertop from this particular island, I'm going to hold my shift key down and I'm just going to grab all of the cabinets that make up the island. When they are selected, there is the option to generate a custom countertop. This creates a singular surface. At this point, I'm going to come over to the edge. You see the red selection handle, and then I'm going to use the option in the edit menu to add a waterfall to the selected edge. That creates a waterfall. As we kind of rotate and slide over to the other side, the exact same operation. Click on the edge of the countertop, click on the Add Waterfall option, and that will generate the waterfall automatically. For added control of the waterfall, you can double click to open up the custom countertop. There is information on the style of edge. Currently I've got it set up to be a miter. You can easily change that, and then that will create a butt cut for that style of waterfall countertop. Let me just hold my middle mouse button down, zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to place the second unfinished island. and I'm just going to place it right in this area right here. Now for this particular island, I want to peel back the custom countertop that's already on here, and I want to create a larger overhang that will come and form an L shape. I'm just going to click on the island, I'm going to unblock it, and I'm going to click on the custom countertop itself. We'll pull that back and reveal it, and then you can see the exposed cabinets. It's going to be a little easier in the floor plan view to snap that countertop back exactly. Let's just zoom in, and I'm just going to pull and snap that exactly to the edge of the other cabinets. And then as I kind of zoom out a little bit, I'm going to use the custom countertop tool found underneath of the cabinet tool. With the custom countertop tool, I'm going to come over here, pick up the snap on the edge of the countertop, pull over, pick up the snap on the other side, and then generate the initial custom countertop. I'm going to double click, open up this countertop. I'm going to come over, I'm going to uncheck Set Thickness from Cabinet. I'm going to set the thickness to be 6.5 inches. You can also adjust the height if you need to do that. That's going to come in finished floor to bottom at 34.5, which is right at the top of those cabinets. Then I'm going to do a little bit of resizing. I'll just close my library browser, get a little more screen real estate. Pull this over here, click on this edge. I'm going to use the number 3 on the keyboard, put a break in here, pull this down so it snaps to that edge of the countertop. With your temporary dimensions on, you can use these to resize the cabinet. Let's maybe begin back here. I'm going to add to the overhang. I'll just click on the dimension back here, enter in 12 inches, pull that out, and then when I deselect the countertop, it's difficult to tell where this is in relationship to the cabinets because of the draw order. Let me tap on the countertop, and I'm going to use the draw order command. You'll find that down here just below, and I'm going to click on the draw order tools, and I'm going to increase that draw order, bring it forward just a couple until you can't see the cabinets below it. Now it's important probably to see the cabinets below it, so what I typically do is inside of the countertop itself on the fill style is to change that to have a transparency value, and I'm just going to put in 50%. With transparency on there, we can now see the cabinets below the countertop. Also helpful if you're going to be putting bar stools, you want to see those slide underneath there, you can control the draw order by clicking on the object and using the draw order command. In our 3D view, I'm going to change the color or the material of the countertop. I'm going to come over into our library browser. I'm going to search for the material from Cambria called Halewood. Once I locate that, I'm going to come over and spray it onto the larger countertop. And then one of the things that I want to do for the side of the island as I kind of rotate around is I want to put a unique end panel on here. Since I have two different cabinets, one that's on the front, one that's on the back, I want to have a end panel that will span both. You can place end panels directly out of the library, and if I browse over into my personal library that I've already saved one, I'm going to come down to the end panel. This is going to be a little bit easier probably to place or position, at least in the 2D view, but I'm going to place the initial one. Let's move back over into the floor plan view. And to exactly position that, I'm going to use a point-to-point move tool. You'll find that in the lower edit menu. I happen to use the shortcut key P, so I'm going to click on the point, and I'm just going to position that exactly where I want. Grab the end panel. I'm going to use the copy reflect about. This probably won't be quite exact since my cabinet island isn't symmetrical. Use the point-to-point move and position that exactly where I want it. Now, next thing I'm going to do is create the floor plan dimensions and exactly position the islands. Previously I used the temporary dimension. Click on the object. You can get the temporary dimensions and use that in positioning it, but I want to make sure that the dimensions are placed on the floor plan so that they can be used for the installation drawings. And when I draw my dimensions out, I want to make sure that I do as little editing as possible. And I want to change my dimension defaults so when I run my dimensions, it's going to pick up the countertop primarily. So I'm going to come up with the Edit Active View. And for the kitchen and bath dimensions, specifically I'm going to use the end-to-end dimension tool. And when I use that tool, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to remove the corners and sides of the cabinets and moldings, and I want to focus on the countertop selection. When I run my dimensions, it will then be picking up the countertop with the end-to-end tool. So let's switch our dimension to the end-to-end tool. I'm going to come over here, slide up, and pick up the dimension. You can see that it's picking it up. Let's pull it out so that it's a little ways out. Let's go ahead and pull that out so that it picks up the other end, and now I've got that dimension. I'm going to hold my shift key down and draw a marquee around the kitchen island. It's going to select all of the cabinets. Then I'm going to click on the dimension and put in the 42 inches that I want it positioned as. Now I changed my marquee selection. If you draw a marquee around it, it may have gotten the room too. Underneath of your preferences, let's come into the preference tool. Underneath of the edit option is the marquee selection. I've changed mine to be contained in objects. I've also added the tool in my toolbar. You see down in the lower right hand section. I can easily change that marquee selection process so that it works best for the type of editing that I'm going to be doing. Let's continue the dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and select the dimension. Let's go ahead and pull that up to the edge of the countertop, and then we'll do one more up to the front of the countertop. Click and drag a marquee selection around the island. Click on the dimension, put in the value to position that exactly where we want. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this existing dimension for the end of the wall, grab the extra diamond, come over here, click on the edge, pull the extra diamond, click on the edge, and then one final one will come over here and click on the wall. And then let's just pull that up so we can easily see exactly where we're at. To position the other island in location, let's go ahead and click on the extra diamond. I'm going to come over here, pick up the diamond. You see that it's 3 7/8 off. Click and drag the marquee, come over to the dimension, and I'm going to enter in 0. So the two edges of those will be exactly flush. Back into the dimension tool, I'm going to use the end-to-end dimension, pick up the end of this dimension, and I'm going to set that island to exactly, let's go ahead and click on that edge. I want it to be exactly 140.5 for that dimension. And then if you need to run additional dimensions in here to get that, you can use the end-to-end dimension tool to create all of your floor plan dimensions. One final dimension, let's go ahead and grab the dimension string and get it positioned onto the wall. And now I want to take a look at the process for creating the cabinet schedule. As we put the note schedule in a CAD detail, let's open up the project browser. I'm going to come over, right click on CAD details, click new detail, and I'm going to call this the cabinet schedule. This is going to put it in a brand new blank area. This is so that you can send a different scale for your plan and your schedules out to the layout and easily do that without creating a cluttered plan. Underneath the Tools menu, I'm going to come down to Schedules, choose the option for a cabinet schedule, and then we're going to place a schedule right in this area right here. Once the schedule is placed, I'm going to double click, open up the schedule. You can control exactly what columns come in. Here are the columns available that you can choose. You can click on these, add them over here. These are the current columns that are included. If you want to remove one of these, click on the label, click remove. If you're working on a small floor plan, you may not need the floor. You can remove the floor and customize any fields to include or exclude. On the label panel, if you want to use a callout label, you can use the callout, or you can use the nomenclature. I'll show you that as I switch back over in the floor plan view. You can change the shape of the callout, and when we move back over into the floor plan, you'll see all of the labels that are used from the cabinet schedule. To move those cabinets around, you can click on them, you can slide them up and resort them. You can use the Find in Plan option. Come down into the lower edit menu, click Find in Plan. And in this case, you can see that it picked it up out of the butler's pantry. You can make your schedules room dependent. So if I come back over into the schedule itself, open up the properties, on the general panel is the option. If you uncheck include objects from all floors, then you have access to choose the room that we're using. And I've got, since I have an invisible wall, it's created 2 kitchens. I'll probably rename that, but I'm going to grab the main kitchen that we've been working in. And then when we go ahead and close the schedule, that will restrict these cabinets only to that room. And when you click on a particular one and you use Find in Plan, that will highlight where that cabinet is. You can make modifications to it. Also from the schedule, when you click on an item, you can open that object up directly. And let's come down to the label panel and specify the label. Instead of using the 1 dB, you might call this maybe a microwave 1 dB 30, and then on the object information panel, for some reason it has the word sync in front of it. In this case, I'll just type in the microwave cabinet. That's a quick way to make adjustments. Just be a little bit aware if you change dimensions of that through the schedule. It could get a little interesting if you've made it too big and it steps on other cabinets. So once your cabinet schedule is all complete, as I kind of zoom out, you can then send that out to the layout sheet. One of the things that I do is I will save all of my schedules in my template plan. When I start a new project, if I kind of open up my CAD details over here, you can see that I already have a window schedule and a door schedule, and then they're just populated as you add those objects into the design. To switch the cabinets to use the nomenclature, I'm going to come over to the label panel and I'm going to use the label specifically, and then in the floor plan view you can see that the labels are now using nomenclature. One of the final things for this session is to create an elevation of the island and add the dimensions. I'm going to use the wall elevation tool and I'm going to cut a elevation right through the island. When you generate the wall elevation view, it's looking for the furthest wall behind it. I have an invisible wall, so you're actually not seeing the final wall, but you are seeing other things like the other island behind the view. So what you can do is back clip the cross-section view. When I drew that camera, you can see if I just kind of tap on it, I ended the view at the end of the island. You can modify this view. Let me click the open object. And on the camera panel, let me change this to the island elevation. I'm going to call it K4. I like to put the numbers in front of it because it will sort over in the project browser. And I'm going to call this the island 1 elevation. And then down below is the option for scene clipping. I'm going to enable the back clip. That way when the camera closes, it will stop the clipping at the distance you drew it. You can always click on this and move it as you need to. On the plan display, let's just make sure that I use the same number. I'm going to call this K4. And you see the camera update in this view and in the elevation view. In the clipping, it's hidden that island that's directly behind this. Also, if there were a wall visible directly behind this, it would also mask and hide that with the back clipping enabled. With the dimension tool, I'm going to come in, I'm going to click and drag the dimension line through here. We'll pull this down, and then let's go ahead and use the end-to-end dimension tool. Come up, pick up the end-to-end, pull that down, zoom in a little bit. It looks like it's picked up an added dimension. Center of that, clean that up on that side, do the same exact thing over here. Pull that off, it's picking up that end panel. And then if you need to do the centerline dimension, let's go ahead and switch it to the centerline dimension. I do have a dishwasher and a sink in here. If we pull that out, it's not set up to pick up the cabinet ends, but you can manually modify that. Let's pull that down. Also give us a little bit of space in here. Pull the centerline down, and then let's pull the extra diamond either to the end of the cabinet, or you can also, if you need to pull that clear over to the end of the wall run, you can do that as well. So all I'm going to do is pick that up and pull that to the edge of the cabinet. And now I have all the dimensions that I need for the kitchen island on the bottom. You can use the end-to-end dimension. Let's just pick it up over here. And then if we pull that over here, let's actually zoom out and move that one up to the ceiling. Now one of the things that I'll do if I'm going to have lights in there, pendant lights, I might draw a temporary line across here so I can align my lights, and then we'll just grab that. You can easily then click on the line, set that dimension, and I'll just put it in at 72 inches. Then I can align that and maybe just pull this out and shorten the line so you don't see it and kind of mask that back, and that's how I can dimension my pendant lights using that dimension tool. Now that I've assembled all the different pieces, these views can be sent out individually out to the layout sheet. Here's a completed variation of the layout sheet. So you see the floor plan, you see my notes, you see my schedule for the cabinets, and then you see the various elevation views that have been created in addition to the ones from this session, but also additional ones, and positioned on the layout sheet. If you want to get a closer look at this, you can download the sample plan from our samples gallery. That wraps up this second session on the Austin Sample Kitchen project. You can review the first session on our website. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so we're going to take a few live questions here. If you have a question in your GoToWebinar control panel, you'll find a little raise hand option. And raise your hand when we call on you. Make sure you give us your name, maybe where you're calling from, and then hopefully your questions will be related to the kitchen design. If you have other questions that are maybe not quite as kitchen related, I'll try and get to those at the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to have Carrie here help me curate a few questions. Carrie, do we have any questions out there?
Thanks, Scott. We do. We have Wilson Matthews here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. This is Wilson from Canada.
Hi, Wilson.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Okay, I have a question here. I saw that you're adding the schedule to the project folder to the CAD details.
Correct.
What's the reason for that? Because I can see a schedule under the same project folder.
Right.
So why you're not adding there?
Yeah. So why I do that is when I have in my my diagram up here underneath the floor plan file, I like to put my schedules in a CAD detail. If I put my schedule right next to my floor plan, and let's say I'm going to send my floor plan out at a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, and I want my schedule to be at a different size, I don't have the flexibility to rescale that easily. So when I'm doing that and creating my layout sheets, I like to be able to control it, send it out directly. And then when we open up that schedule, so if I browse over into my project browser and come over into my CAD details, I've got several of them, but in the case of the kitchen schedule, let's scroll down and open that up. The only thing when I open up this schedule that's in there is that specific item. It's very clean, and then I can send this out to my layout sheet at any scale that I want. Does that help?
Yeah, but then what is that other folder out of the schedule then? If you
Well,
go below that.
so yeah, good question. So I also have another folder down here called schedules.
Yeah.
And you can place your schedule in a CAD detail, you can place it in an elevation view, you can place it in a floor plan view. And sometimes if you're not careful, maybe schedules are all over the place. This is a folder container that would show you all of your schedules regardless of where you placed it. I happen to only place my schedules in CAD details, so I don't have the same issue where schedules may be scattered. So it's just a folder location that compiles all of those for you.
Okay.
Does that work?
So does that mean when under the schedule folder, you can't rescale it?
Yeah, I mean, I can come down here and reopen any of these schedules. It would be no different than if I opened it from the CAD detail, but if I open a schedule from here, it's just a quick shortcut to navigate and open up that particular schedule. What I can't do easily is come down here and say new schedule, right? If I came into the CAD detail, I can do a new CAD detail and add the schedule there. So all it is it's just a location that you'll conveniently find all of your schedules.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, hey, thanks, Wilson.
All right, Scott, our next question is from Brandon. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, we're in Tempe, Arizona. Myself and one of our designers are on this call, but we ran across an issue. We're pretty new to Chief Architect, and she's using it specifically for kitchen design. We were trying to add boxed end panels to an island, but the first set of cabinets were 24 inches in depth, and the next set of cabinets were only 12 inches in depth. So we're trying to get the boxed end panels to protrude another 12 inches past the 12 inches, and we just couldn't get it to lay out right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, thanks for the call, Brandon. If we peek at this project we were just working on, I have a situation where the front cabinet in this island is 12 inches. Let me toggle on my vector view so you can see this. I just want to make sure I understand your question correctly. So this cabinet is 12 inches, and then the cabinet that's abutting to it on the other side is maybe 24 inches. And then I have an end panel that then is spanning both of those. Is that what you're after?
Yeah, but I'm trying to get that end panel to go another 12 inches past.
You
So
want
it
it to
has
go
like,
even further.
yeah, so it has like a U-shaped type look to the island itself.
Okay, so you want to extend it out.
Yeah.
I've got this, I built this actually out of some pieces because it's kind of unique. So well, one, do you want it to be one continuous end panel, or do you want a 24-inch end panel, a 12-inch end panel, another 12-inch end panel? How would you like it to look?
We'd probably end up doing two 24s.
Okay. Well, one way you could do it is on your 24-inch cabinet, you could open up and on the left-hand side say that there's an end panel. On the 12-inch cabinet, you couldn't put a 24-inch end panel on it, but you can place those directly out of your library. So if I open up my library and let's just do a framed door. Let's see if I have one quickly that I can find. Okay, so here we go. So if I grab a end panel out of the library and I place it, right, at this point, you can resize this to any dimension you want. And if you need to extend it, or if you double click on it, you can resize it in any dimension you want. Just double click on it. You have control over what those dimensions are for that. And then you can just position it in the floor plan view and elevation view to get it exactly where you need it. Does that make sense? So if you
Yeah,
place,
that does.
and if you place two of them, right, then you'd have a couple of them back to back and have them kind of positioned where you need them.
Okay. Yeah, I think we attempted that, and I don't think we ended up getting it to look right. But from really the other angle, not from the angle we're looking at here, but from the other angle.
Right.
So yeah, we'll keep
from underneath the island or something.
Yeah, from the other side. So if you were viewing it from the exact opposite angle,
Right.
so you can see the inside of it. Yeah.
Right. You might. Yeah. This may only be a one-sided cabinet door. Let's see. No, this one is two-sided. I was going to say you might need to place a couple back to back, depending on, you know, if you're using a manufacturer door. I don't know exactly how all of those are modeled, but
Right.
yeah, you just take a couple of different views and make sure that that you're getting what you're after there.
Okay. And then the thickness, you can obviously set the thickness of those frame doors too, or
Yeah,
not.
if you open up these, it's called the depth in this
Oh.
case, so you can set that to the size you need.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, our next question is from Derek. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey Scott, how you doing today? This is Derek
Hi,
from
Derek.
Houston.
Hey.
Quick question for you on the schedules. I recently completed a plan, and I noticed the other day that in the cabinet schedule, if I'd modified the cabinet, the picture in the schedule did not modify after I had modified the cabinet itself.
Okay.
Is there a secondary area that I need to click to say, hey, go update my reference image? Or it was a sync cabinet, so I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but
Okay.
so like I took, like on one of these double door ones, I took and made a column of drawers out of it.
Okay.
But when I went back to my schedule, it still just showed as a double door cabinet.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. So, Derek, are you using Chief Architect Premier? Do you know?
I am, and I'm on 14.
Okay.
The beta program.
So what you're suggesting is, if we kind of zero in on this cabinet in the middle of the screen here, if I were to change that cabinet to maybe a bank of drawers, you're you're seeing that it's not updating in the schedule.
That's correct.
Okay, well, let's click on this. One, I could open it up and modify it from right here, but let's find that in the plan using the find in plan. And that one turns out to be, looks like right in the middle. So let's go ahead and open it up. And what I'm going to do is, let's just click on this and let's convert that to a drawer, and then we'll split it horizontally maybe a couple times. So we got a bank of 3 drawers, right?
Yep.
And now when I return back into the schedule, it looks like it's updated okay.
Okay. Well, that's weird. Maybe, you know, I originally started this one in 13 and then converted it to 14. So maybe it got lost in translation there. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of a refresh issue, but you know, worst case is maybe close your schedule and reopen it. But those are dynamic and should be linked. If you do see that issue, just give us a call and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it.
All right, sounds good. And then the second question, when you were doing your kitchen schedule, and I know that you've got your invisible wall in there, is there a way to combine more than one room when you're selecting which rooms are in there, like you're holding down the control key or anything, or is it just floor or room is the option?
Right. So you want to, if I understand your question correctly, you want your schedule to be including more than one room?
Yeah, but maybe not necessarily the entire floor. So maybe the kitchen and the butler's pantry.
Right. So in that case, I can't in the schedule. If you double click on
select more than one room.
Schedules, it gives me a choice of one room. Now, what I often will do is I will, once I've got my schedule dialed in, I'll make a copy of the schedule and we'll just slide one off to the side over here, and I might even put it on the bottom and have it match up exactly. But I'll then open up that schedule and switch this over to the butler's pantry, right? And then I have them side by side, or I can have them top and bottom.
Gotcha.
And that's probably how I'm going to do a multiple room schedule in that case. If I'm not doing it for the whole floor, then or the whole design, that's probably the way that I would do it.
All right. Well, that's easy enough.
Okay.
No. All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Derek.
You bet. Bye.
Our next question is from Robin. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Robin.
Hey there, Scott. How are you?
Hey, Robin. I knew you would call in.
Well, a couple things. First, let me just respond to your the last caller. So one thing that I do often, because I use a lot of different finishes sometimes for cabinets and they can be in different rooms, is I just make my own custom schedules. And then when you go into the cabinet, you can just assign what schedule that cabinet is going to go to. So I make the CAD detail for cab schedule A, nice. Maple, cab schedule B, paint, etc. And then then I can have like my CAD schedule A, which will include, you know, one series of cabinets and my CAD schedule. Because oftentimes when I give it to a cabinet company, I have different finishes. So it's just easier for me to do like schedule A, B, and C, and then I can track that with kitchen orders as well.
That's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that.
So the two questions I have for you are, number one, how do I get moldings into the cabinet schedule? Like, you know, because oftentimes I'm like submitting this to schedules, or if I'm giving it to a client and they're bringing it to somebody, but it's nice to be able to have like the linear feet calculated, which is, you know, it's easy enough to add it up, but it's nice enough to be able to like not have to see the molding on each cabinet, but to actually have the moldings or those materials included into the cabinet schedule. Like I know that they can be included into a schedule. I can assign them to the cabinet schedule, but they show up as like individual moldings for each cabinet. Okay.
What's your second question?
Is that a big no for your first question?
No, I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Want to wait
Colby,
and ask your
okay,
second
so
question?
the second question is, now that they have the option for fillers, I live in an area where we have very old housing stock, so we're not doing a lot of new construction. And I work in a lot of very old homes. So I always need extra scribe on my cabinets, and I need that to be called out. So I use the extended style option. Is there a way, like, to specify? I could tell the cabinet that I want there to be a 1.5 inch extended style, but two things happen. Number one, if the cabinet isn't placed correctly against the wall, it'll be a 7/8 inch extended style. It wants to like automatically snap to whatever dimension it wants to be. And then the other thing is I can't get that extended style to show up on elevations. So it's like if I want to click from the corner of the cabinet to the end of the extended style or make a note for the extended style, I can't get that dimensioned on the elevations. So those are my two questions.
Okay, let's take a look at your first one about moldings here. If we go into my project browser, let's see if I actually have a molding schedule. And let's open this guy up. Make sure that it's actually in the kitchen. There we go. Okay. So what I've done here, Robin, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're after. I actually have countertop profile edges in here too.
That's exactly what I'm after, but you
Okay.
have total lengths on there.
Right. So if you look at the schedule that I have here, let's just kind of investigate what I have. And as I open up this schedule, make sure I click the open button here. What I've done, if you scroll down into the categories for moldings, I've selected cabinet moldings and countertop moldings. You see that okay?
I see exactly what you did, where you were able to columns to include. And since I work with custom schedules, I should have already seen that. But thank you.
Does that answer your question then?
It 100% does.
Okay, well, I'm 1 for 1. Maybe we should stop there. Okay, now your second question is, let me just grab a simple plan here that will be a little easier to manage. So when you're placing a cabinet, and let's say that this cabinet, you said has a scribe on it, and that means typically you've got to use a framed cabinet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have an extended style on it. So as we kind of come over here, and where is that? Point me to it, Robin. I haven't done this in a while for the extended style.
So in there, you could just put under left style extend, you could say 1.5 inches, or right style 1.5 inches.
Okay, so let's say it's at 1.5, right? And you kind of zoom in and you see it. And so the cabinet gets a little bit bigger. And I think one of the issues is you slam that against the wall and it goes away, right?
Correct.
And so what you want is you want it to stop when that style bumps, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. I don't have an easy way to do that, other than you buy your cabinet scribed that way, so you want to have it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could just put, slide this cabinet over, and then with your temporary dimensions, make sure that it's 1.5 inches,
yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we take our wall elevation, it should look like that.
That's correct, yes. Okay, so I was using the temporary dimensions can sometimes be very, very difficult to click on, or to try to get on, especially if you have a lot going on in that kitchen. So those can sometimes be really difficult to use. So I've been using either a CAD line, or I'll just put a filler there and just remove the filler.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like the idea of maybe just use a temporary filler. And
yeah.
You could even use that filler and resize it so that it's inside of your cabinet, and use that as a bumping box.
Okay.
Does
okay.
that make sense?
That makes sense. It has a hard time though when you go to an elevation too of having that dimension when you have extend style. particularly when you're in a corner. So if you're doing a blind corner application and you have an extended style on one side and extended style on the other side, you just usually can't get those. It doesn't want to dimension those extended styles. Because oftentimes, you know, like if I do inset, I have the styles very specific at 2 inches on the inside of on the inside corner. But with old houses, we always have to have that scribe. So I guess I'll just keep using my workarounds.
Yeah, sounds like you're on top of it.
All right,
So
thank
would,
you.
would your preference to be, if you've said your extended style is a number, 1.5 inches, you don't want to see that shaved off if it gets bumped to an object like a wall?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll make sure that we capture that request.
That would be amazing. Like I said, I mean, I'm working in a house right now that was built in 1796. So and
Right.
nothing is straight.
So just so I know, when you order that cabinet, do you order it as a 1.5 extended style, or do you get it with a 3-inch or a 5-inch and then
I
shave
usually will order it with like a 2-inch or 2.5-inch extended style, and I'll let the contractor scribe it to my specifications. So I usually I have very specific measurements that I like to see on the CAD plan, so he knows he's scribing it to 2 inches, or or if that wall's out, he knows, like, you know, he's got to scribe from 2 to like 1 3/4.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Okay, great.
Cool
Well,
beans.
thanks for calling in.
Our next question is from Kavindra. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I am calling from Dallas, Texas, and
Okay.
I am looking forward to the training next month. Really excited about it.
Are you coming?
Yes, absolutely. It's on about an hour away from me, but I reserved a hotel. I am looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Thank you. My question today is about wall elevations.
Okay.
And my question is, your wall elevations were so neat whenever you did your initial, just the cabinets. Whenever I do my wall elevations, I get the ceiling planed, floor surfaces. So is that a default? Do I need to go in and modify my settings and save those defaults? Or I'm not sure, but they look pretty messy initially when I do them.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple questions. What product and version are you using?
I'm on X14.
Okay,
and
Premier?
Yes.
Okay. So the tool that I use to initially generate these, let's close a couple of these guys up that we have. Okay. So when I generate my wall elevations to get something that, you know, eventually looks like this, I use the wall elevation tool. And when you click on the orthographic tools, there is a specific wall elevation tool. Do you see that where it says wall elevation? Is that the tool that you use?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So usually this tool is optimized to only give you the elevation of a room. And what it does is it restricts it to the room and won't do any of the floor or wall platforms. So you see I don't have a floor platform below the stove, a ceiling platform, or the wall ends that bound the elevation view. Is that the way your initial view happens to look?
It does not look like that at all. I do get the ceiling surfaces, the floor surfaces, and I've been using Chief for a long time. I'm not sure if I'm importing bad settings from version to version, but it doesn't look that clean when I initially do my elevation. Yes, it
looks more like that. I don't have any cabinets turned on in here.
Not as much detail. It'll still just grab the room, but it will grab the wall surfaces.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you can do, let's take a quick peek, is if you go into your default settings, you see my little wrench here. It's going to open up your default settings. And underneath your camera tools, there should be a little wall elevation guy here.
Yes.
You might just double check and see if your, well, I don't think that's going to be it, your layer set. I might just pause here and see if anybody, if you're getting, when you do a initial elevation, are you seeing the floor platform? If any of the chief staff know when you use the wall elevation tool, how to avoid getting the wall end caps and the floor and the ceiling. Anybody out there have a suggestion? Crickets. So, Kavindra, why don't you do this? I mean, you could send me your plan. I'll look at it, and if it's obvious to me, then I'll give you the answer. If it's not obvious to me, I might just point you to our support group. Typically, when you run that wall elevation, it should roughly look like this with no walls and no ceiling platform.
Okay.
Sound okay?
That sounds good. Yes.
What class did you sign up for in Dallas?
I think it's the kitchen and bath classes or interiors.
Okay, yeah, we have the kitchen, bath, and interiors
Yes.
class in a couple weeks. Yeah. Okay, great.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
you can send that plan to sales@chiefarchitect.com, and then we'll see if we can figure out what's going on for you.
All right, Scott. Nick's mic isn't working, so I'll read his question, which is,
Okay.
Is there a way to add a center horizontal rail to cabinet doors? My cabinet maker likes to add one for doors over 40 inches tall, but I haven't found an easy way to add this to the elevations and renderings without adding a custom molding for the door profile that's floating on the center of the door.
Okay. Well, I might pause and see Adrian should be out there. What she might recommend to create a maybe an added support rail to a large cabinet door.
Yeah, it's a pretty common request to want to be able to do this automatically, but unfortunately, we don't quite have a tool for that. What I would probably recommend is placing your cabinet as a standalone object, and then, or I'm sorry, your cabinet door, the door style that you're interested in using. And then I would probably use a molding similar to what you've described to that has the profile that's unique to that door panel, and then just draw that across kind of the middle of your door. And then what you can do, so you never have to do that again for that particular door style, is you can select both the door panel that's standalone and the molding that you've drawn, and convert that to a custom symbol, and you can add that to your library. So then it will behave just as a regular door would, where you can apply it to a tall cabinet and that sort of thing. If you go through that process, I'd recommend watching or learning about stretch planes for symbol objects, and that will allow your panel to resize uniformly without messing up the thickness of your stiles and rails when you do that.
Thanks, Adrian.
Okay, and we have Jane here with a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Jane.
Hi, I'm calling from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada.
Okay.
These questions may be too basic for this session. I have two questions. I'm wondering how you put in the electrics, so the outlets and the switches. And then the other question is how to send it to layout. I did watch the introductory session, but it cut off before we got to that.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for calling in, Jane. So usually when I'm working on the electrical, I like to make sure that that's in a separate layer, and I use plan views. In the top of my program here, I have an electrical dropdown. Do you, what product are you using, Jane?
Not the Pro, the I think the first level one, the Fur Interiors.
Okay, so Chief Architect Interiors?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, should be the same. So when I switch my my view, it gets very different because it's actually switched my layer set. So you see that I have some recessed can lights, right? And you'll find those lights in the menu item. You know, if I want to place a new recessed can light and a switch, you'll find all these tools up in your electrical tool for switches and circuits and all those things. And then when you take your 3D view, if we just kind of use this view that's inside of the room, you'll be able to see all of the electrical. And when you want to send this out to a layout sheet, one of the things that I do, let me just grab that real quickly here. Bear with me, I got a couple screens open. Always interesting when you have a bunch of screens. So let's see here if I've got that. So here's my electrical plan, right? So I usually put a legend in here, and then there's the kitchen we're kind of working on here. So when you send the view out, make sure your Save Plan view is on the electrical, and then in your layout, right? So if I do a brand new layout, well, let's just go over to what I usually keep in my template plan, an electrical plan. So if I just move over, in my case, 17 to page 17, this is usually, well, apparently that's not right, 18, sorry. Send my electrical plan out, and from the floor plan view, you can say File, Send to Layout. Do you see that okay?
Yeah.
And then you'd set your scale, you know, maybe 1/4 inch or depending on what the size is. Then you've got your electrical plan out, and you can kind of figure out how you want to position that and organize it. So when I did my electrical plan, that's eventually what it ended up looking like for this sample project. So I hope that helps.
Okay. And then am I going to be able to send that directly to a printer? I mean, a print shop? Are they going to need some special kind of software?
No, usually what I do is I will take my layouts and I will print them as a PDF. So when you come into the print option, I will choose the Chief Architect, where is that? Save as PDF option.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I have it as a PDF, and I'll send it because I don't have a large scale printer or a very large size printer. And then I'll just email that over to the print house and tell them what I want. Does that work?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Very helpful.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right, let's check in with Valerie. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. My name's Valerie, and I'm calling from Carmel, California. I actually had 3 quick questions, hopefully, for you. For creating a schedule for cabinet hardware, is that only possible for hardware that you insert like freestanding? It doesn't do it for hardware that's automatically generated on cabinets?
Okay, so you, Valerie, want to have a schedule for all the hardware on your cabinets.
Yeah, similar to the molding schedule that you were showing earlier.
Let's peek. Adrian, do you know, do we separate out the hardware? Let me close.
I'm sorry, the hardware of what? I missed part of it.
Well, the request was for the ability, like, to create a schedule for cabinet hardware. So let's peek in our schedule.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. Let me close a couple of these things that I have open here. Let's open up our schedule, and just out of curiosity, that's not the one I want. Let's grab the kitchen schedule. And let's see if there's the option for hardware. Hardware, okay.
Yeah, so when I click on that, it doesn't generate it for me unless I've put in an individual hardware myself, if that makes sense.
You placed it like freestanding?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, so let's go back into the cabinet itself. and scroll down. I don't see a separation here for hardware.
Okay.
Ah,
Hey, Scott.
yeah, go ahead.
If you open up a cabinet schedule, there should be a column for door handle, and I believe that's what she's looking for.
Okay, so scroll down in here, and we're looking for door handle. So let's add that. And also drawer handle. Let's add that. Okay. So then let's take a peek. Wait, I could then remove the other items, right? So let's go ahead and zoom in. I don't have very unique hardware names. Does Valerie, does that answer? Does that
Yes.
solve it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's great.
So what the suggestion that, I think it was Phil that suggested this, is add these two items for door and drawer handle. That's apparently where they're at, and those just come down from the column, available columns underneath the cabinet schedule. So that's not underneath of the hardware that I initially peeked at up here.
Okay. Understood. Thank you so much.
Okay.
My second question was, is there a way to renumber the cabinets, the cabinet numbers, so that they're like organized by room and location, or is that just something we have to do manually?
Okay, so in this case, I have C1, C2, C3. And you want to change the order of those?
Yes. Oh,
like
just
that?
dragging it. I see. Okay.
So what that will do, if I swap back over into the floor plan view, and what I have to do in this case, let's switch that label back over, because that's controlled if I go into the label panel and we use the call out. That will then change the view here. So when I want to move these around and organize them, right, I do that by going into the cabinet schedule, and then I can click on them and resort the order. So when I move that one to the top, it becomes C1.
Got it.
So it you know, depending on how you want those organized, you have to manually drag those up. It's difficult for us to automatically do that, because if you end up resizing one, deleting one, inserting one into the middle, oftentimes we don't know exactly what you're after. So that's how you control the label number.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then just one last question. I didn't have the exact same issue as the gentleman before who was talking about the image, the elevation image in the cabinet schedule not updating, but I am having the issue where my blind corner cabinets are showing up as regular cabinets without that blind portion in the cabinet schedule, but they're showing up fine in elevation and everywhere else.
I would have to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to send that in. We can take a peek at it. You can send it to sales at Chief Architect if you'd like to get that in there.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We have Kareem. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, good day, guys.
Hey, Kareem.
Hi, I'm calling from Antigua, in the Caribbean.
We don't like you already.
Okay, I have a problem. I'm trying to bring in a custom sink.
Okay.
And the edges are round, curved. They chamfered the curve. When I place it in the cabinet, the cutout is square. So it's, you know, showing me those square pieces outside of the sink base, and it's not, you know, so it's not underneath. Is there a way to get it to conform, that hole to conform to the shape of the sink base, or is it a way to go ahead and change it after the fact? You know, just to bring it in so that it's hidden.
So Kareem, I think what I would do is I would use a custom countertop. So in this case, when I place a cabinet, let's say this is going to be my sink base, I would separate the countertop using the generate custom countertop. Let's just make this a little bit bigger so it's obvious that it's beyond the countertop. And then I would place your sink. And let's just assume, well, your sink is some interesting shape. While this is selected, what I can do here, let's kind of create this shape for your sink. And let's reposition that so that it's maybe got a, something that is a little bit different so we know exactly what this is. So you've got this unique shaped sink, and I'm kind of making that up. I would convert that to a countertop hole. So I would trace around your sink using a CAD tool, and then take that hole and convert it to a countertop. So I clicked on the convert tool, it's a countertop, and when it's a countertop, on top of the countertop, you can mark it as a hole. See that?
Yeah.
So now I have this unique hole. Where are we at here? Let's zoom out and figure out, wow, where? There we go. So I've got this unique hole, right? And so you can kind of make any shape you want. I made one, I guess, somewhat recently. You've seen those river style sinks. And if maybe they don't have the 3D available, you can easily trace around that and then convert it to a hole.
Nice.
Does that work?
Well, yeah, I'll definitely try that.
Okay, good.
Second question. I noticed in your presentation you had the countertop. The second countertop, it was thicker.
Yeah.
However, I want to create like the same situation but a multi-level, so that you could there's storage underneath that second countertop. So it's raised maybe 2 feet or 12 inches, depending.
Okay. Like
And
a little
there's
shelf?
Yeah, underneath. So between, so there's a countertop, a space, and then the countertop again.
Okay. So if we go in, we'll just do this in the 3D view, and we grab our custom countertop tool, and we click and drag the countertop, right? Then you can pull that underneath here and then set the elevation to whatever you want. Let's go ahead and maybe set that to, oh, I don't know, floor to top. Let's set it at 24 inches because that should be a taller island. And then whatever the thickness is, you can set the thickness of it. So that will adjust the height, and then we can just kind of snug that up against the cabinet. And then, of course, this is going to be easier to do in our floor plan view. Let's slide over, pull that over, and position it something like that, right? And then however long you want it. And then let's go back over into our plan view. Of course, you're probably going to want to pull that up a bit so that it's a little closer like that. Is that what you're after? Of course, I've got doors and other things in the way.
Not quite. I was talking about that it comes above the main cabinet first. So that the storage space is above that main cabinet.
Okay, so you want this cabinet
the
lower.
main countertop. No. The main countertop. You have the main countertop is 36 inches. Then you have a 12-inch storage space, and then that second countertop at the back.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm trying to create that, like a split level countertop.
I'd have to see exactly what you want to sketch it out and send it into sales at Chief Architect. I'll take a look at it, but if you want to create a lower countertop, you saw how I did that, an upper countertop. The elevations of those, so you can stack and combine those as you want. If it's something super unique, you could even use a molding. You could draw a molding profile and then set the thickness of it and follow whatever that profile is. So if it stair steps in, that could be a fast way to do it as well.
Okay. So I'll sketch it out and send it to you guys.
Send it. You can send it in sales at Chief Architect. We'll take a peek at it and see if it's a little more obvious, and then send you a couple suggestions back.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You stay warm out there.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, we have Lisa here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. It's Lisa Taylor calling from St. Petersburg, Florida. How are you?
Hi, Lisa.
So just a comment and a question. Comment of the previous person who mentioned that her blind corner cabinets are showing up in floor plan view correctly and in the cabinet specification correctly, but then in the schedule, it does not show up correctly. That has also happened to me.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen randomly. So, and then my question is,
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
Is that what's considered an automatic blind corner that you're having the issue with?
No, I typically place a regular cabinet and then I split the cabinet in half essentially, and I create one side of it as a blank area, and
Right.
then the other side is a door.
Okay, I like that approach. Okay, well, hopefully the other caller will send that in to us and we'll take a peek at it. Also make a note of it so we can investigate that further.
Great, thank you. And then the question is real quick about cabinet schedules. Is there a way to say, you know, if you have 30 cabinets as an example, 30 rows of them, can I say I only want C1 through 15 in this, in this block, and then I want a separate block with C16 to C30?
Are you splitting it because of space or something like that, Lisa?
Exactly. Yeah. And I right now what I'm doing is I'm creating custom schedules. And so I'll put like all my island in one schedule. And then depending on how large the kitchen is, sometimes I'll do all bottom, base cabinets in another schedule, and then all uppers in a third schedule. But it is time consuming to do custom schedules. It would be nice if there was a way to just designate, I only want 1 to 15 in here and 16 to 30 in another schedule.
Yeah, so I have 28 cabinets at least in this particular example. This isn't a great solution, but I'll make sure that that's basically a feature request. I'd make a copy of this one, and then I'd probably do something where when I resize this one at the top, let me just pull this one down. And I make 2 of them. So I'll send that out to my layout sheet and then resize it. Have you done that before?
Yes. So then you're basically going to pull up the bottom of it, and then you're going to send another one out.
Right. So basically what I end up doing, I probably did that a little backwards. So let me delete that. I'll send this out to the layout, and let's just send it out. And then as I resize that, right? Whoops. Do something like that, crop the other guy out, and then I'll make another copy of it, and then I'll pan that down. And I think there should be a new pan feature here. Let's see. There we go. Undo that. Sorry. And then I'll just pull that so that it goes down to the bottom and something like that.
Right.
That's
okay.
That's the best I can offer right now.
Okay.
Get those when you run out of space. I have heard that request before. I'll make sure that we capture it. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And real quick, will we be going through electrical on this plan that you have here during a training?
I don't have an electrical one scheduled for the seminar. The next one we have coming up is the bath, and then we're going to do a remodel project. if you're interested in the electrical, if you browse out to the website here and you come down into our samples gallery, there should be one for the electrical that would be similar for this bachelor view plan, and you see the how-to design videos. Let's click on that. Let's just make sure that I'm not lying to you, because I could be.
Scott, I did chat out a link for a replay of the kitchen electrical webinar.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. So we do have a webinar. It doesn't happen to be in this project I just showed you, but there is one that that Carrie chatted out.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
We have Jeffrey here with a question. Go ahead, Jeffrey, ask your question.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey from Victoria, British Columbia.
Oh,
not quite as warm an island as the Caribbean, but it is still an island technically in the Pacific, so I feel a little ripped off.
Nice.
Oh well. Anyways, I got a question, and it might be a similar issue, and it might solve the problems with this Caribbean gentleman that called. And it's basically, yeah, it's about countertop overlap. So let's say I've got a base cabinet sitting at 36 inches off the floor to the countertop, and it's got an overhang of about 1.5 inches. You know, maybe all the way around, or at least on the sides. Right. And I've got a 30-inch high cabinet butting up against it.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. When I put the two right beside each other, it seems to make the overhang on the 36-inch high cabinet disappear on that side.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if there's a workaround to that. I've tried making the countertop disappear and going with a custom countertop, but then it makes the lower countertop disappear off that cabinet. It's a really strange thing.
Do you guys drink a lot up there in Canada?
Oh, only on days that end with Y.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a cabinet here and a cabinet here. And for this one, let's just make him shorter. So I'm just going to take and make him 30 inches, is I think what you said, right?
Yep.
And now when we bump these guys together, let's see what happens. And let's peek at this in our 3D view. Okay. Now, what would you like to happen here? You want the overhang on the upper one still to be 1.5 inches. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we can do that. And let's make it a little easier to see it.
Yeah.
What we do in the program when you bump cabinets together, we try to be smart about it and auto trim it. And in this case, we're auto trimming the right-hand side here. So if we go into the cabinet, basically it's, you know, uniform. So if we, you know, try to adjust it, you can see that, well, it's still getting chopped off.
Yeah.
So what I would need to do in this case is just disconnect this is one way to do it, and then pull this over 1.5 inches.
Okay.
And do that.
Disconnected it. You could just, wow.
Yeah, you click on the cabinet.
Yeah.
Click Generate Custom Counter.
Oh, okay. Huh. Okay.
Does that work for you?
I think so. I missed the sleight of hand on that. When you when you separated the countertop out from that on that taller cabinet. Yes. How did you do that?
Click on the cabinet.
Yep.
There's a tool in the bottom that says Generate Custom
Countertop. How about that?
Separate it.
Yeah.
And you can pull it. I use the tab key, and then you can type in a dimension.
Well, how about that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay, great.
Indeed it does. Okay. Yeah, I think that might be it. I know there was something else I was sort of looking at, but I think that might have to wait for another time. So no, that's good. Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for calling in, Jeffrey.
Yep.
I think we have time, Carrie? One more question here.
Okay, we have Monica. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, this is Monica Lewis with J.S. Brown and Company in Columbus, Ohio. I think this will be a fast one for your last one, so thanks for taking it.
Yeah.
When I'm placing cabinets near a wall, sometimes I don't want the cabinet and the counter to fill and auto attach to the wall. I'm going for, like, say, a furniture look.
Okay.
And I can't find where I need to check or uncheck to turn that function off.
Okay, let's make sure that, let me see if I understand your question correctly. I may have a cabinet right here. Oh, and of course I don't. I deleted it. Let me just grab this. There we go. All right. Sorry, bear with me just a second.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, so I have a cabinet here. Let's figure out what exactly what you're after on your look for your cabinet.
So on your cabinet there, it is not auto attaching and creating a fill on the right side where it's close to the wall. And on my plans, it does do that. And I'm sure there's a place to turn it off. I just can't find where it is.
So you're saying is when you slide this close to the wall, you get maybe what we call in our program an automatic filler, and it's attaching to the wall?
Yes.
Okay. What program are you using and what version?
We have not updated to 14 yet. We are still in 13.
Okay. And are you using Premiere?
Yes, Premiere.
Do you primarily do kitchen and bath design, or do you do other things, or?
We do all kinds of things. We do additions and basements and all kinds of things. Usually when I run into this, it's in a bathroom application. That's where I'm most likely to use like a furniture vanity or something like that. Or if I'm trying to recreate a piece of furniture that the homeowner has so they can see the scale of it in their kitchen or in their bedroom or whatever. And, you know, I'm trying to shove it into the spot that it's designed for, and it keeps attaching and expanding to fill the void. So
okay. Let me show you where that setting might be underneath the defaults. So if I go into my default settings underneath cabinets and we come down to the general cabinet tool, there's a option here that says create automatic fillers.
Okay, I see it.
Is yours turned on?
I will look. It is.
Yeah. So
here I was looking all around in the cabinet.
So anybody that does anything that's somewhat serious for kitchen and bath design, I always recommend you turn that off. We turned that off, I think, in our interiors template. But if you're serious about doing kitchen design, those aren't easily dimensioned to. They don't show up in your materials list. And I usually recommend people turn those off if you're doing some detail and in kitchen or bath design. So that's a good place to turn it off in your default settings. And then if you save that in your template plan, then your future projects would abide by that setting.
All right, that's what I'll do. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hey, thanks for calling in, Monica.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that wraps up today's presentation. We're going to be back next week. We're shifting gears to the bathroom. We're going to work on the bathroom design. The following week, we're going to do remodeling with as-built overlays. Following week is kind of a week off. We're going to be doing the live training as we kind of discussed in Dallas. And then the following week, we're going to focus exclusively on some of the new features that are new in X14. I did mention that we have an event coming up, a couple of them. We've got a in-person training in Dallas that will be in a couple weeks, 19th and 20th, a kitchen class and a residential design class. And so if you want to sign up for those, you'll find those on our event page. And then next week, we're doing a virtual training class. If you're new to the program, this is our introductory class. These are online. They're 4 hours a day, and they're spaced out across 4 different days. So those are available on the website. So The last thing I want to point out is we do one-on-one training. This is over the internet, kind of like we're working here. It's about your project, your specific questions. And when you want to schedule this, you can just give us a call. We do charge a fee for this, but it's a very cost-effective solution to maybe address some very specific things you may be facing, and maybe a great way to get to the bottom of things. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for coming. Hopefully we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, and we'll look at our bathroom. Have a great day, and thanks for attending.